The following is an encore presentation.
Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. On Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Welcome to Inspired Conversations. I am so excited and honored that you've joined me today. Now, have you noticed lately that the topics of self-love and self-worth are everywhere we look? And I personally, it's because the universe or the divine is telling us that the time is now for women to heal the shame, pain, and self-judgment that we carry and to release the layers of old stories that we've taken on during our journey. And we're going to be talking a lot about that today when I'm joined by my dear friend, life and spiritual coach Mal Duane of malduane.coach.com. Mal Duane has triumphed over devastating life challenges and uses the lessons she has learned to coach other women to reclaim their lives. She's a certified professional life and spiritual coach and has been referred to as the champion for restoring women's self-worth. Her own life experience, including recovering from alcoholism as a young woman, has provided her with extensive hands-on, in-the-trenches experience for taking hold of a life and bringing forward the potential that lies buried beneath the scars and the hurts that many of us carry. Mel generously shares with women what she has learned at every opportunity and supports them in reclaiming their worth and their life. Mel is the author of the #1 bestseller, Alpha Chick, 5 Steps for Moving from Pain to Power. She has been featured on Fox 25 News, Maria Shriver's website, Middlesex News, as well as Aspire Magazine and Healthy Living Magazine. Mel has been invited to over 200 media interviews to discuss the power of choice and personal transformation for women. Mel's a big believer that the greatest component of success is being able to give back. And in 2007, she built the Catherine Hawley School in Mali, West Africa. Mal lives with her English Jack Russell Terrier, Hannah, in Framingham, Mass., where she works, writes, speaks, and supports women in living their truth and reclaiming their lives. Welcome, Mal.
Oh, good morning, beautiful. How are you today?
I am good. You know, you and I have been circling and playing and collaborating for many years now, and I'm one of your biggest fans because you're a woman who, like me and so many others, has taken her own personal journey, pains, and struggles and turned them into a mission. And I want to go back to that time, Mal. I want to go back then. I want to know how a lack of self-worth and self-love showed up in your life back then.
Well, Linda, to be completely transparent, I created my own lack of love and self-worth by taking on criticism that other people had, harsh comments, sometimes the way they treated me, and I took all of that and held it within me and made it my truth instead of somebody else's behavior that reflected their own wounds. So I took that on and I made that my identity, and in my head I constantly replayed these situations, these comments, these failed relationships, and made it my truth, where I ended up feeling unlovable, unworthy. And it was my own thoughts and perception that created my suffering. Rather than looking at it and saying, that poor soul, the way that they treated me, that's a reflection of their pain and what they've gone through. I made it personal.
I think a lot of us do that now. I think a lot of us do exactly what you said, especially if we're growing up with wounds, right? We are open and so vulnerable to the scripts and stories that others impose upon us, like who we should be, how we should show up in the world, that we lose the connection to our true self. And you and I have had many personal conversations about that very topic of how our paths led us to disconnect from our truth. So I love the work you're doing in the world now, because it's about reconnecting with women with the truth of who they are, because that's always been there.
It's not our stories. It's not what other people do to us that defines us. What truly defines us is what we're going to hold within ourselves as far as our love and worth. Our love comes from within. It does not come from external experiences. We do it ass backwards, which is sad. And it took me 25 years to figure that out.
And you're not alone on that, because that's about the time it took me to start to enter this path of, personal and spiritual development, so that I can continue to heal all those layers that you talk about quite often, the layers of shame, self-condemnation, judgment. And I think the journey is, we're meant to be on the journey continuously from birth to death. And so how did your journey, as you, over those 25 years, did you just continue to dive deeper and deeper to release those stories?
Oh, I drank excessively to kill the pain that I was holding within me, because I thought I was worthless, because I thought I was unlovable, because I thought I was ugly, because I thought no one wanted me. I tried to kill the pain by drinking. The drinking was the Band-Aid to the wound. And then I woke up, and you and I, we both experienced this kind of divine breaking open, where we couldn't take one more day of that journey, and we were ready to end the journey because the pain was so intense. And when we get to that place of breaking open completely, we get to see the light for the very first time, and you start to go, oh, wait a minute. I'm not that I've been believing all along. I'm not that person. I'm not worthless. It starts. You start to have a revelation about who you really are as a woman, and you start to say, wait a minute. Just because that person didn't want to be with me doesn't mean that I'm no good. It was all about them. It wasn't about me. You start to understand that all this stuff that we thought defined us is meaningless. It has no bearing. But sadly, it sometimes takes us to that breaking point to figure that out.
And it's so true. And I want to share with our listeners, during your heaviest time of drinking, which is going back many years, over 25 years ago, you, from the outside world looking in, it looks like you had it all. You were a successful model. You were traveling with all the big names and Ola Cassini, and I see the pictures everywhere. But the outside was not mirroring the inside of how you truly felt about yourself.
Absolutely. It was like I wore a mask, Linda.
Exactly.
Every day I put the mask on. It was like a costume. And with the modeling, I could show up and be anybody I wanted. I didn't have to be Mal. So I would put on hairpieces and makeup and exotic clothes and be in, Caribbean islands having my picture taken. So I was playing a role. I didn't have to be the real Mal, the real me. But when all the props stopped and it became dark and it was night, the real Mal was back, the one that was suffering and in such pain. And that's what drove the drinking.
You were trying to smother it. And I think so many of the women in our circles, and what I mean is those on the personal and spiritual development path, wherever they may be, whether they're taking their first steps or whether they're further along, I think that's a thread that goes through all our stories, is that we woke up one day and realized we had accumulated layers of masks that we had been hiding behind, not just one, because usually I found that there's many layers taken on at different points in our lives. And we wake up and all of a sudden we feel like, oh my God, I have to get these off and I need to live authentically. And that's exactly what happened to you. That's what happened to me. And that's what you help your clients do, is reclaim their lives, their true, authentic lives.
Yes. Get rid of the layers. Start to peel those layers off. And as we do that, it's like getting to the perfect part of the onion or some other fruit. You take off the bumpy, ugly, brown, dried, old layers of skin, and inside is that perfect, bright, shiny substance that we all are. We're not that external layer that we've created.
Well, I can see that description, too. I can visually see it. You know, we all have this radiant light within us, and sometimes we think we've lost it. Like, we think we've lost our joy, our connection to happiness, love, passion, etc. And what I love to tell women, and I know you do, too, is that can never be lost because it's the essence of who you are. And all that needs to be done, and it's not always easy, as you know, is, as you said, remove the layers like an onion and keep peeling back what is keeping you from shining that divine light, that truth, that authentic self. And I love that analogy, like an onion. Just keep peeling it because it is there. It's the essence of who you are. It's just buried from layers of false stories, shame, and other emotions and wounds that we've taken on in life. And as you've said before, you know, because I love that someone once referred to you as the champion for helping women reclaim their self-worth. You know firsthand because you're teaching what you've done for yourself. And I think that's one of the most powerful gifts a teacher has on this path, is someone that teaches from experience and can hold space with love and compassion. And have you noticed in the woman that you serve that this is an insidious thing that so many women suffer with, this lack of self-love and self-worth?
Oh, I think it's the absolute foundation for women suffering. And I see it in so many souls. And the thing is that they're suffering silently, which breaks my heart. Women struggle with self-worth, self-love. And once they understand that that's the issue, they can create whatever they want, Linda. But I don't think I've ever met a woman that truly had the most incredible sense of self and being and esteem and just confidence. I don't think I've ever met a woman that came from that complete place of balance. Everybody I know has got a little bit of extra layers on them, a few scratches and bruises along the way. And sadly, we let that take over and create an imbalance within us. So if we could understand that, look at this, we can get all the glory back, we can get all our divineness back. It never leaves. We just brush off the debris. But we're like little pieces of Velcro going through life. We collect the debris. It's time to let that crap go.
I love that. And brush off the debris, because I can visually see that. Just let it go. Let go of what is no longer working and keeping you from living your truth, living authentically, living passionately, because that is our birthright.
Absolutely. And you know, I've walked in these shoes sadly, way too many times in this journey of feeling that intense pain of not loving myself. I've been there so many times, so when I see women, I feel it. I'm very empathic to their pain. I feel it, and I know what it is. I can look at a woman and say, oh, my God, she feels so badly about herself. She doesn't need to. She could be in such a different state of being if she just realized that whatever she's picked up and carried along, it's not who she is. She can let it go, and she can get that divineness back. It's how we're born. You know, I love to watch little kids play because they are so real. They haven't picked up all the constrictions that we pick up as we go through this journey. And you watch kids play, and they're blissful.
That's so true. Because that's the essence of who we are. And we're going to talk more about that in a moment when we come back from commercial break. And you are listening to Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy and my special guest, Mal Duane of malduanecoach.com. We'll be right back.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Ladies, your story has the power to transform lives. 4-time best-selling boutique publishing company, Inspired Living Publishing, is dedicated to sharing women's stories of hope, love, and transformation with the intention to inspire and empower their readers to believe in the power of possibility. Share your story in an upcoming print or Kindle project. Visit inspiredlivingpublishing.com today.
This is OTR FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Now, I want to continue the conversation. I want to read a quote that you know is one of my favorites, and I actually pulled it from a part of your blog and website called A Letter to My Wounded Sisters. And this is something, as you know, I've shared quite often, but it is so powerful, and it's really talking about everything we're talking about today, about women needing to release the stories of the past. And this is what I'd like to share from you. The mistakes of your past do not matter. Your past does not define the truth of who you are. You, my beautiful sister, are not the sum of your mistakes or your self-perceived shortcomings. You are so much more than the stories, shame, and guilt that you continue to burden yourself with. It's time now to release those shackles and embrace the truth of who you are, a feminine powerhouse of love, strength, resiliency, here to shine your divine light. And remember, Mel, when I first read that, I was brought to tears, and I still can feel that charge in my heart because that was me. That was so many women in the world who believe that because of past mistakes, because of old stories, that they can't possibly live the life of their dreams or love themselves fully or allow someone else to love them fully. And that comes from your truth of serving women and seeing the same pattern over and over again. So my question for you is, why do you think women struggle with self-worth? What do you think it is? Is it something from childhood? Is it something deeper than that?
Well, I believe, Linda, when we first arrive on this planet, we're perfect little beings. We're untouched by family, society, and then life starts to happen and we meet our parents. Now, not that they're not good people, but they have their own wounds and their own stories and their own perceptions of things, and they start to teach us those things, and we take those on as our beliefs and our perceptions. And it just expands. We keep taking on things from different people that we are exposed to in life and at school and whatnot. And we keep taking on these different aspects of lessons that people are trying to teach us. You know, as a kid, I was told, eat all your food on your plate because there are starving children in China.
Yeah.
or money doesn't grow on trees. You need to save for a rainy day. I mean, these are somebody else's old stories. They don't apply to me, but we take all this stuff on. And the next thing you know, we're taught to be good little girls and not speak up and not to speak loudly, and which creates this environment that we shouldn't defend ourselves or advocate for ourselves, that we should sort of sit quietly and take what comes at us, and that expands into another belief that maybe we have no control, that we live as victims according to what happens. It's just a vicious cycle of misunderstanding. But it doesn't mean we can't put an end to it. We can. And it's just stopping all that conversation that goes on in our heads. From the moment we get up to the moment we close our eyes, we have this nonstop dialogue, which comes from this side of the mind, which is the ego, that does not serve us. It works on survival mode. And if we could just shut that down long enough to get into our higher selves, which lives life from a place of love and not from survival mode, the game changes dramatically. Everything changes dramatically.
And I want to share, too, for those listening on the call who might be new to the path of spiritual and personal development, who say, I don't know how to do it. I don't know if I can ever do what Mal did or Linda did or any of my other guests. Well, guess what? None of us just healed instantaneously. We kept taking baby steps. And, of course, you'd take 3 forward. I'll speak from my truth. I'd take 5 steps forward and 3 steps back, because it's an unfolding. It's a learning new tools to be able to listen to your heart instead of your fear-based ego, as Mal is talking about. And was that true for you too, Mal, as you began to heal and when you gave up alcohol and started to release the layers? Was it baby steps for you and sliding back and forth as you uncovered your truth?
Absolutely. My transformation was a practice. And it's not like all of a sudden I got everything right and I didn't make mistakes. Absolutely wrong. It was a process. I would take 3 or 5 steps forward, and then there'd be a step back. And this, for me, it was, in business, I just excelled. Business was never a challenge for me, but my personal life and relationships, because I was such a wounded soul, it took time to figure that out. How to honor myself in a relationship, how to show up and be authentic in a relationship, how to have proper boundaries in a relationship. That was my biggest area of personal growth, and really learning to understand the power that I had as a woman in communicating with others and respecting myself in that communication with others. Absolute practice. And it still is. I've been at this healing and recovery for 27 years, and it's still a practice. I don't have it down perfectly, but I'm always working on it. I'm an avid student.
I love that.
And I every day I love to learn more. Every day I'm studying to how I can improve my life just a little bit more. And, I'm a student of the Course of Miracles, and I love the science of mind, and I love Yogananda, and so many of the spiritual teachers, Wayne Dyer, Louise Hay. These have been my mentors on this journey. And I will continue to study and learn different modalities and practices that will support my growth. I'm not doing this alone. I'm studying, I'm learning, I'm a student of life, and there's so much information and wonderful, wonderful things that we can access by reading and online that will help us to grow. There's no reason not to anymore. It doesn't cost money to do it. We all have access to this information.
It's so true, Mel, and I'm glad you brought that up because part of Aspire's mission, Aspire Magazine's mission for 10 years is to give away as much content as I possibly can from visionary women like you to support other women on at least stepping on the path. No excuses. I'm making this as much content complimentary as I can because remember when we started on the path 25, 27 years ago? There wasn't the internet. There wasn't a click of a button to hear some of today's leading visionaries or new thought leaders. Now everything is instant access. Everything we need to heal is available to us, but we have to own our worth and accept it into our lives and take the inspired action steps to actually do the work.
When I started this journey, I'd have to pay to go to seminars, to hear speakers. I would have to buy books or magazines to read what I wanted to read that I thought would help me in my recovery and my growth. And you're right, Linda, today, I mean, Aspire, look at the luminaries that you feature monthly, the classes that you offer, the summits with the best of women offering tools for personal growth free. There's no excuse today for a woman to wallow in their misery and their suffering and their victimhood. There's just too many free tools to help us to start to transform and create change in our lives and to educate ourselves and to become a student of personal growth and transformation. That's what I am. I will be a lifelong student of personal growth and transformation, and everything I learn, I want to give away.
Exactly, and that's what you do with your clients. It's like you've,
yes.
And I think all great teachers from every walk and every path, I think that's what they do. In their own healing, they land up creating this, I call it like a spiritual toolkit. And maybe at the time they started adding to it, they didn't know that one day they'd be led to be a teacher or a healer or a coach. But they started putting all these tools in this chest. And now, in their work with others, they have access to the best resources because they've done the work. They have the tools, and now they're sharing it with others. And that goes for you. I see how much time and energy you devote into your own healing and path so that you can serve your clients at an even higher level.
And it's not hard to be a student of growth and reclaiming our lives and tapping into our divineness. It's not hard. It's actually, for me, it's blissful. The greatest thing I ever did was create a spiritual practice to keep me on my path of transformation and recovery. And I allocate an hour every morning to meditation, to journaling, to prayer, to reading new things that teach me so much about life and how infinitely more powerful we are than we're ever taught to believe. And all these things, they don't cost me a lot of money to do this or anything. It's there. I buy a few books from Amazon and here and there, but I'm always listening to YouTube videos, which are free, of my favorite speakers and mentors, Aspire Magazine, the wonderful articles from all the luminaries. There's just, every day I allocate 1 hour in the morning to start my day. That's my platform. That's how I embrace the rest of my day, my business schedule, working with clients, working in my real estate business. And I try to do at least a half an hour to an hour at night just to wind my day down, do a little journaling, touch into my, gratitude practice of really what went great during the day that I appreciate so much and love so much, and then setting my intentions for how things I want to do the next day.
Oh, I love that. And when we come back, I want to talk more with Mal about some of the practices that she uses, as well as more on healing your self-worth and self-love issues. We'll be back in a moment.
Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Do you love, accept, and respect the woman you see in the mirror? You are a goddess. But do you treat yourself as one in every area of your life? Are you taking care of you? Or are you last on your to-do list, if you're on it at all? It's time to take off the Superwoman cape and awaken your inner goddess. Psychologist and body love expert Mary Pritchard is passionately dedicated to empowering today's women to heal their relationships with food, their body, and themselves, along with reconnecting with their inner goddess, stepping through perceived fears, and embracing the truth of who they are. Visit drmarypritchard.com to learn more about Dr. Mary's Body Love Group program, private coaching, sacred goddess circles, and to schedule a complimentary chat. drmarypritchard.com.
This is OTR FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Mel, before the break, we were talking about some of the practices that you use, and I love that you start every day. And I've seen your meditation room and your sitting area, which is, I'll tell you, so zen. And I love that you start your day that way, because I've come to believe that it sets the intention for the rest of your day. Now, for those women, because you know from our personal conversations, I was one of them. I'm like, oh, my God, I don't have an hour a day. Did you start with an hour, or earlier on your path, did you just start by taking that first step?
Beginning. And it was, I would get up earlier. So my practice was I would get up a half hour earlier. And my practice started with 10, 15 minutes of meditation. That's all I could do at the beginning. That was a challenge. Because people have to understand, Linda, it's a practice. It's not about perfection. It's what feels right for you. So start with that 10 or 15 minutes. Get up a little bit earlier to allow yourself that time. And as you grow, and you can expand the time. For me, now it's an hour. And if I have a busy day and I have clients really early, then guess what? I'll get up an hour earlier so I can do that, because that is the foundation of my day. And I want to come from that place of peace and being centered and being really focused on the things that I need to do through the course of the day, rather than get up and be, frazzled and off balance and frenzied and rushing and feeling like I'm late for everything. I can't do that. That sets me up for disaster.
Yeah, it takes us off our center, off our balance. And, the more, the further along I get on this path, I notice that all the people in the industry that we look up to, Oprah, Tony Robbins, many of them, Tony Robbins actually calls it his hour of power. He starts every day with that sacred time for him, and his looks like the way it works for him, and Oprah has hers. And I'm noticing in our own community, this big sacred community that's part of the Inspired Conversation Show or Aspire magazine, all the women who have accelerated their healing incorporate some type of morning practice. And everyone's morning practice may look different, but it's the fact that they have one that I notice they really accelerate their healing, their growth, their breakthroughs. So I agree, it is such an important part of the day.
You look at every single person out there that is experiencing great success in life. Now, success in life is not necessarily all monetary. It can be, success with family, success in relationships, living with a sense of abundance and bliss and purpose. This is successful living. All of these people have some kind of practice from where they start their day, so that when they start their day, They're starting it from a heart-centered place and not from mental chaos. Big difference. Big difference. When we come from a heart-centered place, we are standing in our power. We are standing in our truth. We are prepared to face the world in the most real, strong, open vision way that we possibly can. When we start from mental chaos, we're already shut down. We're already defensive. The blinders are on. Our vision is very locked in. We have no flexibility. Something happens where we can't respond appropriately. Instead, we're reacting with frenzy and thrashing. That's not the way to live. That's a burnout. That's a heart attack waiting to happen.
And it doesn't. And what I go by is, does it feel good? I don't want to go through my life feeling anxious, frenzied, etc. But I think for so many of us, and I was there at one time, I think for so many of us, it becomes the norm to feel that way, that we forget that we can focus on joy, inner peace, etc.
You mentioned the most important aspect. How does it feel? Our bodies are the most magnificent barometers to what we're doing in our lives. And if it doesn't feel good, you're not in alignment with who you are. It's that simple. If you feel good, you're in alignment with your truth, with your mission, with your purpose, with your passion. It's just that simple. If your body doesn't feel good, that's the wake-up call. Start doing something different.
Yeah, I tune in. I'm very, as you know, very like you, an empath and an intuitive. And if I start feeling what I call like wonky in my solar plexus area, then I stop myself and say, what thought just came into your mind to bring you off center? Because that's usually where anxiety or fear, starts for me. And that moment, that instantaneous feeling in that area of my body, I know, time to recalibrate, right? That means I need to tune back into my heart. And because I'm so aware now, I can do it instantaneously. With 25, 30 years ago, I might have allowed myself to get caught up in some drama that was going on around me or a family member and spin out of control. So do you have little physical signs or that your body tells you or gives you that says you're out of alignment? Because you know what, Mel, I want to say to everyone on the call, life does happen. There are times that you might get pulled off center. That's just part of being the human existence. But it's knowing and recognizing it and coming back to center that is the power. So how about you, Mel? Do you have a physical sensation?
I do, and I get it in my gut. When something is not right, I feel it in my gut. Now, Linda, in full honesty, I have ignored my intuition, which is that gut feeling at times. I have said to myself, oh, Mal, you're overreacting. You're being insecure. This is old thinking. You're looking for drama. And I've dismissed that gut feeling of something not feeling right and not honoring it. I will never, ever, 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 ever do that again. I'm going on the record. When I have a gut feeling that something isn't right, I'm going to sit with it, feel it, allow it, connect with the discomfort, identify what's causing it, because if we just take a couple of minutes and we've got that gut feeling, it's going to come through what's causing it. And
it's like a signpost. It's a physical signpost.
It's a flashing, it's a red flag. Hello, look at me. This is not right. Either it's something we're thinking isn't right or something that's triggered our thoughts that isn't right. But we need to honor our intuition, our gut, our whatever way that shows up. As women, we need to honor that and realize that is the barometer within us saying something is not right. Do not dismiss it. Just sit with it, allow it, feel it. And what will happen is it will open up and you will identify what it is. You'll figure it out. You'll say, oh, okay, that's why I am feeling this. Now that I know what's triggering this, how do I want to respond to this feeling? Now you have choices. Now you open yourself up to options and choices. And when we're in a position of choice, we're in power. When we're in a position of reacting, which is without choice, we are diminishing our power and being held hostage by what's happening around us.
So true. And you know what I've come to learn now is our intuition and the signs it gives. In our case, it's physical signs. Is a message from the divine or from your source. Whatever your source may be, we all have that divine connection. And it always wants the highest and best for us. So when your source feels that you are not living your soul's purpose or you are heading down the wrong path, you will get these intuitive hits, intuitive signs, even if you might not word it that way at this point on your path. But they are there to support and guide you in living your highest, best life. I believe, from my own personal experience, that our role here on this earth and this plane is to learn to listen to, honor, and take action on those intuitive messages.
Absolutely. You know, we should think of them as like little cosmic nudges. Because if we ignore them, then the cosmic 2x4 comes along and knocks you right on your ass.
And believe me, Mel and I have had quite a few cosmic 2x4s in our lives. So.
Oh, my God, you know.
We're slow learners, but all that matters is that we got back up and got back on the path.
Yes. So pay attention to the nudge. So we get those little nudges for a reason. And as I said, I've ignored them, and then I got hit with the 2x4, which knocked me to my knees. I always get up. Takes me a little while to figure out how am I going to handle this, how am I going to honor myself in this, how am I going to protect myself in this, how am I going to love myself in this, and then get up. But maybe I could have avoided getting knocked on my ass if I had just paid attention to the little nudges beforehand. So that's really what they are. The intuition's a cosmic nudge that you need to do something different. You need to pay attention. You need to make a different choice. And if we listen to that, we can save ourselves an awful lot of discomfort because when you get the 2x4, then it's a much more dramatic process. It takes a lot more effort and work to get back up. We all can do it. We all have the power, the strength within us to get back up, but it takes more work.
And it's so true that I love how you described it. First, it's like nudges. Then the signs get a little heavier. And I like to picture them like up there with a megaphone, like, hello, do you hear me? And I feel that the more I've done the work over the last 25 years, the clearer the connection gets. I like to say it's the more work you're doing on yourself, that the static to the connection, you know, like I said, we've always had this connection, but the static starts to clear and your intuition becomes stronger and stronger. And a lot of people use the word intuition. Some say inner wisdom, sacred guidance, whatever the word that feels more natural for you. But that's what we're talking about. We're talking about that connection to our source that is there and wants the highest and best for us. And our role is to learn to listen.
I love the way you call it static. To me, that's the ego screaming in the other ear. Oh, you should do this. Anytime you start hearing shoulds,
run.
Know that that's not your authentic self. That is not your higher guidance talking to you when you get shoulds or any kind of thoughts or suggestions that diminish you in any way, that do not honor you. Your intuition, that higher guidance, is loving and supportive and is here to help you grow and be the best expression of yourself. So when it's critical, you know that's not the intuition, that's not that higher guidance, that's the static. You want to ignore that. And it does. With practice, that becomes less frequent. It gets softer and softer and softer. Not that it completely goes away, because the ego is about survival, so it stays with us thinking that it's going to protect us in the long run, but it softens. It's not the controlling force in the mind any longer. It's there, it does its job, fine, but it's not the screeching, demanding voice that we listened to for so many years that got us into so many complicated, chaotic situations that were painful and damaging. Now we're listening to that other voice, that loving voice that's helping us to expand and grow. And with practice, that's what becomes the primary source of guidance and information for us.
It's so true. And I want to talk more about ego and fear and divine guidance when we come back from our final break. And we'll be back in a moment to continue our inspiring conversation with Mel Duane of melduanecoach.com. We'll be right back.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
What if you could live the life of your dreams, the life that you came here to live? What if you were able to honor your gifts and passions, turn them into a heart-centered business, and make a big difference in the world, all while living authentically and doing the work you love? It is possible. Patricia Young, president and founder of InnerProsperityAcademy.com, knows that awakening to your own truth, aligning with your life purpose, and having your own business is one of the most exciting and courageous things you will ever do in your life. Patricia helps spiritual, sensitive, and growth-oriented women start, grow, or transition into a business they love so they can go from working for a paycheck to working for a mission. For supportive resources, programs, and more to help you do just that, visit InnerProsperityAcademy.com.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Now, when we left off, you were talking about ego and why it's there and how sometimes it can direct our life, but when we're in balance, it is no longer at the forefront of our life. And something I've always shared with my clients and that I've learned on my journey is how to decipher, because I used to get this question a lot from clients. How do I decipher when it's ego and when it's love? And how I've shared, and then I'd be curious to hear how you describe it, I share that when it's your heart, your source, your inner wisdom guiding you, the thoughts and the direction it's given you feels expansive, joyful, filled with possibility. But when the language you're hearing is coming from ego or fear-based thoughts, it is constrictive, fear-based, limiting, and that's how I've learned how to decipher the difference between my inner wisdom and my fear. So it's like a little game I play is this expansive or constrictive? And there's only two answers, and then that answer decides your next step. So how do you tell, I know now you're further along the path, but at the beginning, how did you learn to tell the difference?
It was partially the physical sensation I would get in my body with the thoughts. That was part of it. If it felt good and peaceful, I felt okay moving forward with it. If it felt restrictive, tight, angry, I knew that it was coming from fear. I always have an image in my head, and I think of the ego as the tail that wags the dog.
Oh, say it again. The ego is the tail that wags the dog instead of the... Okay. So go ahead, explain.
So for me, when I have thoughts that I think are really ego-based, I think of that image and I think of like, well, is this really what I'm all about? Is this really what I want? Is this really what I want to create? Or am I just reacting from fear? Is this going to get me what I want? Is this going to bring the outcome that I want if I say or do this? Am I going to get what I want? Am I going to create what I want? Am I going to get the response that I want if I do this? And it becomes very clear that it's the tail that's creating the motion. And then I can say, okay, what will create the response, the reaction that I want, the situation? How can I do that? And then I can just shift myself into that place of more loving thoughts. You know, the Course in Miracles says we have two sides of the mind, love and fear. Which one you want to pick? It's pretty simple. And for me, now I can really look at things. Am I coming from a place of love or am I coming from a place of fear when I respond?
It's a beautiful way to exist in the world.
Took some practice to get to that point. But that's the goal. You're either responding in love or you're responding from fear.
And what I like to say to someone is, again, what I said earlier, we are human. And even Mel and I, who have been on this path for 25-plus years, we may do or say something in a moment and speak something or do something and immediately know, oh, that wasn't my highest vibration. That's the spiritual message. It's that moment when you go, is that how I want to show up? So do you find that too, Mel, that it's being able to catch when we're in the human existence, human mind instead of the love-based mind?
Oh, you know, Linda, as you know, I've had some huge personal challenges in the past couple of years. And I will say that my spiritual practice, really paying attention to how I responded to things, helped me to walk through a very difficult situation with grace, so that I consciously always tried to respond from a place of love. I did the very best I could. Not that I was perfect, but in most moments of communication and response, I tried to do it from the heart and not from an angry mind, not from an angry, bruised ego. And because I've had this practice as long as I have, I really could feel it. I could say, okay, no, I would love to scream, holler, yell, insult, name call right now, but is that who I am? Is that a reflection of 27 years of self-work and growth? Is that how I would respond? No. I'm going to respond from a place of peace and love and grace.
I love that, and I was witness to that process for you, and as I shared many times with you during that process, that you inspired and empowered me to always be fully present in how I was showing up in a situation. And as our time is unfolding, I want to be sure that we share with the woman on this call and tuning into this show is what is the number one tool you would recommend for a woman listening today who says, I want to take the next step, the next inspired action?
Well, I have two recommendations. One is to start a personal practice of meditation, because it has changed everyone's life that I know who uses meditation as a spiritual practice. You look at Oprah; she talks about how her life has just completely changed since she started meditating. And for me, it was the same. It has brought me a level of peace, openness, awareness, really getting in touch with who I am at my core in such a profound way. And I don't think anything else could have done that. And the second thing is maybe someone needs an accountability partner or someone to hold their hand in this process. And you may need to reach out and get help to get started on this journey. And I used many people in this path to help me get where I am today. Sometimes we need someone to support us in our growth. So don't feel that you have to do this alone, but start with the meditation. See how that goes. And then if you need someone to help you in the process, research that, look into it. You know, get a coach, get someone who can help you grow on this journey. I've had several that have taken me faster and deeper than I ever thought of going.
And I love that you're now doing that for your clients.
Yes.
And that's such a beautiful a gift that you're now sharing with the world. And I, like you, believe that meditation, I used to be intimidated by the word, but start where you are. If it's 3 minutes a day feels natural to you, start with 3 minutes. What matters is that you start creating that sacred space in your life to create and clear the static that we were talking about with your connection. And I want to invite everyone to visit Mal at malduanecoach.com to learn more about all the inspiring ways that you can connect with Mal, work with her, and I highly recommend that you read this powerful blog post that she has called A Letter to My Wounded Sisters. So, Mal, I want to thank you, my dear friend, for being here and always showing up with your heart wide open. Well, everyone, thank you for joining me for Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy. Listen in every Tuesday at 2 p.m. for more sacred